recruit cultists, summon monsters, and eventually manifest yourself. Welcome to Cthulhu Wars. The object of the game is simple, but to get there, let's set it up. First, you place the map. It is split into two halves. Each half has a 3-player side and a 5-player side. In a 4-player game, simply flip one side to the 5-player side while the other one is on the 3-player side. Next, you set up the tracks, the tokens, and the dice. This is the Ritual of Annihilation track. We'll get to that. The Doom track is where the fun begins. You and your enemies start off with 0 Doom. Your goal? Get to 30. Have the most before anyone else does. Camera would focus. There we go. As for dice, you get 26-sided dice, as in 20 dice with 6 sides each, if you purchase the core game. I personally use the add-on, the battle dice, which includes 20 dice for each faction. Next, set up factions. Here's where the fun part comes. The core game includes 4 factions: Great Cthulhu, Crawling Chaos, Black Goat, and Yellow Sign. I will go in depth on each of these factions plus expansion factions in their own dedicated videos. For now, for this example and tutorial, we will use Black Goat, Crawling Chaos, and Great Cthulhu. Great Cthulhu has, well, Cthulhu obviously. Crawling Chaos has Nyarlathotep. And Black Goat has this thing that I'm not going to say the name of out loud because I don't want to be canceled. After setting up factions, you set up start areas on the map. You place your 6 cultists in their start area, typically marked by a glyph, as well as a gate, and place one of your cultists on the gate. The gates normally aren't these gray plastic pieces. They're normally these really shitty looking cardboard pieces. You can buy these plastic pieces as an add-on though, and I love them. So for this example, Great Cthulhu starts in South Pacific. Black Goat starts in Africa. And Crawling Chaos starts in Asia. No son of mine, drink anything but rice wine. That's right, you can trace our family roots to Asia. I don't know why I just made that. I don't know why, but I just love that YTPMV of Family Guy. The first player can be decided amongst yourselves. However, Great Cthulhu always goes first. And Windwalker, which is an expansion faction, is never allowed to go first. After setting up The first player chooses the direction of play, clockwise or counterclockwise. At the end of the game, the player who has placed all 6 of their spellbooks on their faction card and has the highest doom on the doom track will be declared the winner. Cthulhu Wars is played out in 4 distinct phases. The action phase, the gather power phase, the determine first player phase, and the doom phase. Play begins with the action phase and will proceed through each phase as previously listed, returning to the action phase after the doom phase. This cycle will continue until the end of the game is triggered. A typical game of Cthulhu Wars will take approximately 4 to 6 cycles through these 4 phases. The map is divided into areas. Each area is printed with its name and represents a single part of the world and is defined as either ocean or land. On the Earth map, ocean areas consist of the North Pacific, South Pacific, North Atlantic, South Atlantic, Indian Ocean, and Arctic Ocean. All other areas, including Antarctica, are counted as land. For most game purposes, there is no difference between ocean and land. Any units can freely move between land and ocean, and vice versa. Perform actions in either type of area, etc. However, abilities may occasionally distinguish between ocean and land. Notably, one of Great Cthulhu's abilities. Well, 2, actually. In certain expansion maps, the terms sea and ocean may be used interchangeably. In game terms, seas and oceans are identical. Any ability or text referencing one is read to include the other as well. Note that the areas on the far right of the map connect directly to those on the far left because, the Earth is round. For example, if you are in the Indian Ocean, you can move directly to Antarctica, the South Atlantic, Africa, Asia, the North Pacific, or Australia, down under. I'm going to move the rulebook over to my seat to make things easier. Oh, you can also move it into the South Pacific because there's these little lines connecting it. Each player has a pool in which they keep spell books and plastic figures, units, of their player color that are not currently in play. Yellow signs desecration markers are also part of its pool. Players' pools should be set up near their faction cards. Each faction has 3 categories of units. Cultists, monsters, and, of course, great old ones. In the core game, the only type of cultist is an acolyte cultist, and every faction has exactly 6 of them. Each faction has more than one type of monster, and each of these has different characteristics. No 2 factions share the same type of monster. Great Old Ones are individual beings, and thus every single Great Old One has a unique name. No 2 are the same. The number of units available to you is limited. For instance, you can never have more than 6 acolyte cultists in play. Nor, for instance, can Great Cthulhu have more than 4 deep ones. During play, if all of your units of a particular type have been placed onto the map, you cannot place another until one has been returned to your pool. Units in your pool are not considered to be in play, and vice versa. A unit can be removed from play and returned to your pool by being killed during a battle, or by otherwise being eliminated. Eliminations can result from actions, abilities, or as part of a battle. Each player starts the game with a controlled gate, meaning that one of their acolyte cultists has been placed atop that gate, identifying its controller. A gate can never have more than a single cultist on top of it. Thus, a particular gate may only ever be controlled by a single faction. gates can also be abandoned, as indicated by the lack of a cultist on top. Monsters and Great Old Ones cannot control gates, and they may never be placed on top of them, with the exception of Black Goat's Dark Young, using their Red Sign spellbook. More gates will be created throughout the course of the game, and no area can hold more than a single gate. Gates are highly valuable, as they provide both power, which enables you to perform actions, and doom, which enables you to win the game. Each faction in Cthulhu Wars is strikingly different, largely due to their unique abilities. These are largely derived from 3 sources. Let's use Great Cthulhu as an example. Unique faction abilities found on faction cards and available from the start of the game. Spellbooks, which are unique to each faction and become available during play. And in addition, each Great Old One has its own unique ability, available while that Great Old One is in play and described on each faction card. Every special ability belongs to a category that determines when that ability takes effect. There are 5 basic types of special abilities. Actions, which are abilities you can use during the action phase. Battle abilities, which take effect only during a battle. Gather power phase, and these abilities take effect in each gather power phase. The doom phase, in which they take effect in each doom phase. And ongoing. Ongoing abilities can be used at any time. The use of special abilities is considered optional unless designated as mandatory in the description. This means that at the moment you would use the ability, or when the ability's effect would do something, including an ongoing ability, you may choose for the effect not to take place. Because special abilities are intended to help your faction win, it is usually better to use them at every opportunity. However, you may encounter a circumstance in which you may not want an ability to take effect. Some abilities are not optional, and they must take effect at the appropriate time. In such a case, this would be made clear in the text of the ability. If an ability targets an enemy's unit, the victim typically selects which of their units is targeted by that ability. There are some rare exceptions, which are stated in the text of the ability. If the ability does not specify who chooses the unit to be affected, then the choice belongs to the unit's owner, not the ability's controller. Earning spellbooks is similar to earning achievements in video games. When you fulfill one of the requirements written on your faction card, typically involving summoning your Great Old One, looking at you, Cthulhu, you must cover that requirement with a spellbook from your pool. No particular spellbook is ever tied to any particular requirement. You may choose any spellbook to cover any slot. Spellbooks may never be lost, even if their requirements are no longer true. Once earned, spellbooks remain on your faction card and may be used for the rest of the game. It is possible to earn more than one spellbook at a time as long as all requirements are met at time. However, there are some spellbooks that can only be earned simultaneously if performed in a specific way. In such a case, this will be explained on the faction card. For example, Great Cthulhu. Kill or devour an enemy unit in battle. Kill or devour 2 enemy units in a battle. You can earn both of these spellbooks in a single battle, but only if you kill or devour 3 or more units. If you gain a spellbook as part of or during a battle, for example, Great Cthulhu's requirement that demands a devour or kill in battle, you do not receive that spellbook until the battle has been fully resolved. Example, Black Goat has a requirement which states, have units in 4 areas. As soon as this requirement is met, Black Goat gains a spellbook and places it over that slot on their faction card. Even if on the very next turn someone drives units away from into 3 or fewer areas, Black Goat retains the relevant spellbook for the rest of the game. Each individual spellbook enables your faction significantly, and therefore, a major part of your game strategy is tied to when and in which order you obtain your spellbooks. Then, Elder Sign Trophies. Elder Sign Trophies symbolize the shattering of the bonds that once held the Great Old Ones in check. Throughout most of the text, these will simply be referred to as Elder Signs. Whenever you earn an Elder Sign, take an Elder Sign, usually from the cloth bag, but you can also lay them face out on the table. I like to do them in this pattern because it looks cool. And without revealing it to other players, place it face down by your faction card. You may freely examine your own Elder Sign tokens, each of which is marked with a number, 1, 2, or 3. These numbers indicate that Elder Sign's value in Doom. There are 18 Elder Signs, worth 1 Doom, 12 worth 2, and 6 worth 3 each. While these numbers indicate the Elder Sign's Doom values, this Doom is not immediately marked on the Doom track. Instead, it is up to players to decide when to gain Doom for their Elder Signs. To do so, players must reveal their Elder Signs and then advance their Doom markers an appropriate number of spaces along the Doom track. This may be done at any time during any of the 4 phases of play, or even at the very end of the game. It is typical for most Elder Signs to remain unrevealed until the end of the game, thus concealing each player's true Doom. When revealing an Elder Sign to gain Doom, do not place that Elder Sign back into the general pool. Place it back into the box. It is gone and may never be redrawn. In the unlikely event that all Elder Signs have been earned, and a new Elder Sign is to be drawn, simply give that player 1 Doom instead. This would not be kept secret. Your faction card has a great deal of information. It has a name, a faction portrait, which is a handy spot in which to place any cultists you've captured, a power track, which is where you will keep track of your available power throughout the game, a unique ability, which describes a faction's unique ability, which is, again, available throughout the game, setup information and faction glyph, cultist and monster information, provides information on your cultists and monsters, including their name, silhouette, cost, and combat, plus any notes. Next to each unit's name is a number indicating how many of that unit are available in your pool. For example, 6 Acolytes, 4 Deep Ones, 2 Shoggoths, and 2 Starspawn. Great Old One information shows your Great Old One's silhouette, cost, and combat rating, plus notes. All Great Old Ones have extensive notes that describe how to awaken that Great Old One, provide its combat formula, if any, and describe its special ability. For example, Cthulhu has Devour. Before a battle, the enemy player chooses and eliminates one of their monsters or cultists in the battle. Finally, spellbook requirements. Each of these spaces describes the requirements which must be met in order to place a spellbook in that particular slot. Action phase. The action phase is when most of the game takes place. During this phase, each player can, in turn, move units, cast spells, engage in a battle, and otherwise interact with opponents. The action phase is where the Great Old Ones destroy the world as they fight for supremacy. The action phase starts with the current first player, who takes a single action. There are 7 common actions. Recruit Cultist. This allows you to place a cultist in any area that has a unit. So, in an example, Great Cthulhu can recruit a cultist in either South America or the South Pacific. It's generally recommended to recruit cultists to occupy gates whenever possible. Summon a monster. Well, first, recruiting a cultist costs 1 power. Summoning a monster, its cost varies and requires a controlled gate. For example, Great Cthulhu can summon a deep one for 1 power at his controlled gate. A Shoggoth for 2 power at his controlled gate, or a Starspawn for 3. Awaken Great Old One. This cost varies, and specific requirements apply. For example, Cthulhu himself can be awakened for 8 power if you control a gate in the South Pacific. And that is where Cthulhu will appear when awakened. Creating a gate costs 3 power and requires a cultist to be in the area. You can create a gate to occupy it. Moving costs 1 power per unit moved. You can move them into any adjacent area, or if you are playing as Crawling Chaos, you can move 2 spaces at once, which is very annoying. Battle, which costs 1 power, requires a unit with at least 1 combat, and requires an enemy faction and yourself to have a unit in the area. This is where the fun begins. But we're not going to go over this yet. Sorry, I'm edging you for a bit. Capturing a cultist costs 1 power. You can capture a cultist if you have a monster in the area and the faction that the cultist belongs to does not have a monster in the area. If they do have a monster in the area, you can still capture the cultist, but only if you have a Great Old One in the area. If they also have a Great Old One in the area, then you cannot capture the cultist at all. As an example, avoiding capture by monsters. Let me clear off the board. Let's say Crawling Chaos has a gate in Africa. Great Cthulhu moves in with a cultist and 2 deep ones, preparing to capture Crawling Chaos's cultist and seize control of the gate. Crawling Chaos, for their next action, may simply summon a Night Gun. Now his cultist is protected and cannot be captured except by an enemy Great Old One. In order to avoid capture by a Great Old One, you need to simply move your cultist out of the area. Or fight it off. Now, for battles. Battles are perhaps the most complex of all events in Cthulhu Wars. It is a player-initiated action and is described in the action phase section of the rulebook, which is on page 15. A battle takes place in a single area and involves only 2 factions, no matter what other units may be present. The faction initiating the battle must have at least one combat among its units in the area. Even though battle can be an unlimited action once you have earned all 6 spellbooks, an area may only host a single battle on a given player's turn. All units in the area belonging to the battling factions must participate in the battle. After the battle action has been paid for by the player who initiated it, the battle proceeds through the following steps. 1. Pre-battle abilities, such as Cthulhu's Devour. 2. Combat dice calculation and rolls. In a battle where... let's just go back to this example, but let's add a hunting horror and a flying polyp to the mix. This will give Crawling Chaos 3 dice and Great Cthulhu 2 dice. So, roll the 6-sided dice, and I like to use these battle dice, which rather than having numbers, have symbols. Hold on. They have symbols. This is a kill, this is a pain, this is nothing. However, if you do not have the battle dice add-on, you can simply roll any 6-sided dice. A 1, a 2, or a 3 adds no results. A 4 or a 5 adds a pain. And a 6 adds a kill. After you roll, you activate any post-battle abilities and assign battle results. Let's say Crawling Chaos got a kill and a pain, and Great Cthulhu got 2 kills. Now, to assign the battle results, Crawling Chaos chooses which of their 2 units to apply the kills to. Likewise, Great Cthulhu chooses which of his units to apply the kill and pain that Crawling Chaos rolled to. So, Great Cthulhu will pain a deep one, which essentially knocks it into an adjacent area. An important note, the area to which a unit is pained cannot have any enemy units. And it also has to be adjacent to the battle area. If no such area exists meeting these requirements, then the unit is eliminated anyway. A kill just removes the unit from the map entirely. So, Crawling Chaos, wanting to protect its higher cost and higher value monster, the hunting horror, will choose to apply the 2 incoming kills to his Night Gaunt and Flying Polyp, thereby saving the hunting horror. And then if Great Cthulhu initiated the battle and it goes to Crawling Chaos's turn, he can just pay 1 power to capture the cultist as well. You apply the battle results after any post-battle abilities. Now, the game ends in one of 2 ways. It happens either when a player reaches 30 or more Doom points on the Doom track, or when the ritual marker on the Ritual of Annihilation track reaches instant death. Rituals of Annihilation are this game's way of making a quick comeback if you are behind in Doom points. Simply pay a number of power equal to the number being pointed to on the ritual track, to advance the marker forward, and gain 1 doom point for each gate that you control, and 1 elder sign for each great old one you control. The cost of a Ritual of Annihilation steadily increases as they are performed, and when it reaches instant death, the game ends. Typically, games will end when someone reaches 30 doom, but it can end prematurely if enough rituals are performed. When a faction reaches 30 or more doom points on the doom track, the game will end. Since doom most frequently increases during the doom phase, the game will normally end in that phase. In that case, complete the entire doom phase before declaring final victory. However, a player could reveal elder signs during the action phase. If this new doom increases their total to 30 or more, the game will end when the current player's turn ends, even if it is not the turn of the player who revealed elder signs to go over 30 doom. The game can also end during the doom phase when the Ritual of Annihilation marker reaches the instant death space. All players who have not had a chance to perform a Ritual of Annihilation may still do so with the highest cost on the track. The game will not end at the completion of that doom phase. Hold on, I'm dyslexic. The game will end at the completion of that doom phase, even if no one has reached 30 or more doom. No matter how the end of the game is triggered, all players may reveal their elder signs before the victor is declared. When the end of the game is triggered, and after adding everyone's elder signs to their doom totals, the player with the most doom and with 6 spellbooks on their faction card is the winner. If the player with the most doom does not have 6 spellbooks, whoever has the most doom among those with all 6 spellbooks on their faction cards is the winner. If 2 or more players tie for the most doom, and both have all 6 of their spellbooks, the game ends in a draw, and the players rejoice in their shared victory. If the game ends and no players have all 6 spellbooks, players lose and humanity wins. All great old ones, monsters, and evil cultists are sucked back through the collapsing gates. Yay! As general tips, play can be divided into 2 main periods, the early game and the late game. In the first 2 or 3 action phases, players should try to acquire spellbooks, build up a power base, and summon at least a minimal army. Be choosy about when you awaken your Great Old One, because this will generally leave you weak for the rest of that action phase. Battle in the early game is opportunistic and is based on attempts to take control of enemy gates or fulfill spellbook requirements. I'm just reading this word for word from the rulebook, by the way. The late game begins once you have 3 or 4 spellbooks under your belt and your Great Old One is in play. You still need to finish up your last spellbooks, but you can now afford an occasional Ritual of Annihilation. Remember that the earlier you perform your rituals, the cheaper they are and the more expensive they become for your enemies. At this point, the purpose of battle changes. You now seek to reduce your enemy's gates, making them less effective at rituals. If one player surges ahead in Doom, get the other players to work with you against them. If you are the player who has surged ahead, try to break up such alliances. Get them to fight each other so that you are left alone. And that is the general idea of Cthulhu Wars. Again, I will go in depth on each faction and independent neutral piece in their own dedicated videos. Every expansion will have its own video. If I don't have an expansion, I will simply create a video on it when I do have it. And until then,